I was folding laundry in my living room when Williams walked through the door without knocking. Again, his wife Olivia trailed behind him, that familiar look of urgency painted on her face. My hands stilled on Robert's old work shirt, one I couldn't bring myself to donate even after 3 years. Williams didn't say hello. He said, "Mom, we need to talk." I set down the shirt and looked at my 38-year-old son. Really looked at him. When had the boy who used to bring me dandelions turned into a man who only showed up when his wallet was empty? "Sit down," I said quietly. They exchanged a glance that practiced coordination of two people who'd rehearsed this moment. Williams sat on the edge of my couch like he was afraid to get comfortable. Good. This wouldn't take long. "Mom, you know we've been struggling," he started, his voice taking on that soft, pleading tone I'd heard 100 times before. The transmission went out on the car, and Olivia's hours got cut at work, and with the kids needing school supplies. I held up my hand. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady, strong. "Williams, you're 38 years old. The bank of Mom is closed, permanently." The silence that followed felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Olivia's mouth fell open. Williams blinked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "What?" he finally managed. "I have to think about my retirement," I continued, each word deliberate. "I've helped you for 15 years. I've paid your rent. I've covered your overdrafts. I've co-signed loans I knew you couldn't afford. And every time, you promised it was the last time. Mom, this is different." "It's always different, Williams, but it's never better." Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against my hardwood floor. "Kayla, that's incredibly cold. We're family. Family helps each other." Something about the way she said my name, not Mom but Kayla, like I was just another obstacle in her way, made everything crystallize. "You're right," I said softly. "Family does help each other, but you've never helped me. You've only taken." Williams looked wounded, his eyes going glassy the way they used to when he was a boy and didn't get his way. But he wasn't a boy anymore, and I wasn't going to rescue him from his own choices. "I can't believe you're doing this," he said, his voice shaking. "Dad would be ashamed of you." The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Robert would understand. He'd tried to tell me years ago that we were enabling Williams, not helping him. I just hadn't been ready to hear it. "Your father loved you enough to want you to stand on your own 2 feet, I replied. "I'm finally doing what he asked me to do." They left without another word. Olivia grabbed her purse with such force that she knocked over the picture frame on the side table, the one of Williams at his high school graduation. Neither of them picked it up. When the door slammed, I sat down in Robert's old chair and let myself shake. My hands trembled. My breath came in short gasps. But underneath the fear and guilt was something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about all the sacrifices I'd made. The vacation to Ireland I'd canceled because Williams needed money for a security deposit. The new roof I'd postponed because he'd gotten behind on car payments. The countless dinners where I'd smiled and pretended everything was fine while my retirement account dwindled. I'd told myself it was love. That's what mothers do, I'd thought. We sacrifice, but sacrifice is supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to lead somewhere. All my sacrifices had led here, to a 38-year-old man who saw his mother as an ATM with a pulse. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went to the kitchen. I made myself tea and sat at the table where Robert and I used to do our bills together. I pulled out my checkbook and started adding up every check I'd written to Williams over the past 15 years. $60,000 I'd given my son, not loaned, given because he'd never paid back a cent. I could have retired early with that money. I could have traveled. I could have lived without the constant anxiety of wondering if this month's emergency would drain my savings account. I tore the page into tiny pieces and let them fall like confetti. "Debt forgiven," I whispered to the empty kitchen, but no more. 3 days of silence felt like 3 years. I jumped every time the phone rang, my stomach dropping when I saw it wasn't Williams. What kind of mother was I? Relieved not to hear from her own son. Then, at 11:30 on Thursday night, my phone lit up with his name. I almost didn't answer. My finger hovered over the red button. But old habits die hard, and the voice in my head that said, "What if it's a real emergency?" was louder than the one that said, "He's manipulating you." "Hello? Mom." His voice was soft, tired, so different from the anger he'd left with. "I'm sorry to call so late. I know you're probably sleeping." I wasn't. I'd been watching old episodes of a cooking show, trying to distract myself from the guilt that had been gnawing at me since they'd left. "What's wrong, Williams?" A long pause. Then, "It's Olivia. She's in so much pain, Mom. She needs emergency dental surgery. There's an abscess, and the dentist said if it gets into her bloodstream." He trailed off, letting the implication hang there. My heart constricted. I remembered when Williams was 7 and fell off his bike, how I'd driven 80 miles an hour to the emergency room, how I'd have sold everything I owned to make sure he was okay. "How much?" The words came out before I could stop them. $2,000. "I know it's a lot, but Mom, she's in agony. She can barely eat." And the dentist said, "No." Silence. "What?" "No, Williams. I can't do this anymore." His tone shifted, the gentleness evaporating. "Can't? Or won't?" "Both." "Mom, this is serious. This isn't me asking for beer money. My wife is in pain." "Then use your credit card. Or apply for a payment plan. Or take out a loan. There are options that don't involve me." "I've maxed out my credit cards keeping food on the table. Do you think I want to ask you? Do you think this is fun for me?" My chest tightened. Every maternal instinct screamed at me to fix this, to save them, to be the mother who swoops in and makes everything better. But I'd done that for 15 years, and nothing had gotten better. "Williams, every time I help you, you tell me it's temporary. Every time, you promise you'll figure it out. But you never do, because you know I'll be here to catch you." "I can't believe this." His voice turned cold. "After everything we've been through. After Dad died and I was there for you. You visited twice after the funeral, Williams. Twice. Because I was dealing with my own grief. He was my father. And I was his wife of 40 years. My voice cracked. "But I still showed up to my job. I still paid my bills. I still took care of myself." "Wow." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I guess I know where I stand now. Money matters more than family. That's not fair. I'll make sure to tell Emma and Jake that Grandma doesn't want to help us anymore, that when we were desperate, she turned her back." The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. He'd invoked the grandchildren, my beautiful grandchildren, turning them into weapons against me. That's when I knew it wasn't love motivating him anymore. It was strategy. Sunday morning, I was in my garden pulling weeds when I heard the car door slam. I looked up to see Williams and Olivia marching across my lawn, their faces set in identical expressions of determination. My stomach dropped. I stood slowly, dirt on my knees, trowel still in my hand. "We need to talk," Olivia announced, not waiting for an invitation before opening my front door. I followed them into my own home, my sanctuary, feeling like an intruder. They'd positioned themselves in my living room like it was an intervention. Williams on the couch, Olivia standing with her arms crossed, both staring at me like I was the problem. "Mom, sit down," Williams said, patting the chair across from him like I was the child now. I remained standing. "What's this about?" "We're worried about you," Olivia said, her voice dripping with false concern. "You've been acting strange lately. Those women at church have been filling your head with ideas." "What women?" "Don't play dumb, Kayla." There it was again. Kayla, not Mom. "Everyone knows you've been spending time with Helen and that whole group. They're poisoning you against your own family." Helen was 74 and taught financial literacy classes at the community center. I'd gone to exactly 2 sessions, learning things I wish I'd known decades ago. Things about boundaries and enabling and the difference between helping and hurting. "Helen's been teaching me about financial independence," I said evenly. William stood up. "See? This is exactly what we're talking about. You're letting strangers influence you." "I'm making my own decisions." "Really bad decisions," Olivia snapped. "You know the car loan you co-signed for us? It's about to default. The bank's going to repossess it, and it'll destroy your credit too." There it was. The real reason for this visit. "We need $5,000, William said, to catch up on the payments." $5,000? After I'd told them the bank was closed. After the midnight manipulation. after everything. Something cold settled in my chest, something that felt like clarity. No. Williams's face reddened. What do you mean, no? Your credit is on the line, too. Then my credit will suffer. That's the consequence of co-signing a loan for someone who can't make the payments. Someone who can't, Mom. I lost my commission at work. It's not my fault the economy's bad. That was 8 months ago, Williams. You've had time to figure it out. Olivia stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. You're really going to do this? You're really going to let your son lose his car, lose his job, all because you've suddenly decided to be selfish? I'm not being selfish. I'm being responsible. For me. You're being cruel, Williams said, his voice breaking. I'm your son. I'm all you have left of Dad, and you're treating me like I'm nothing. The words were designed to wound, and they did. But I'd learned something in Helen's class. Guilt is often just anger turned inward. You're not nothing to me, Williams. You're my son, and I love you, but I don't owe you anything anymore. Olivia made a sound of disgust. This is unbelievable. You know what? We don't need you. We don't need your money or your judgments or your new enlightened attitude. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. Williams followed, but he turned back at the threshold. You're going to regret this, Mom. When you're old and alone and need someone to take care of you, remember this moment. Remember how you abandoned your family when we needed you most. The door slammed so hard that the pictures on the wall rattled. I sank into Robert's chair, my whole body shaking, but underneath the trembling was something solid, something that felt like bedrock. I'd stood my ground. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, mixed in with the usual bills and grocery store circulars. I almost threw it away, thinking it was another credit card offer. But something made me look twice. The envelope had my name and address printed on it, but the return address was for a bank I'd never heard of in a city I'd never visited. I opened it with shaking hands. Congratulations! Your application for the Platinum Rewards card has been approved. My vision blurred. I read it again, certain I'd misunderstood. But there it was in black and white, a credit card with a $10,000 limit issued in my name, with an address in Milwaukee that I'd never lived at. I called the bank immediately. The customer service representative was cheerful until I explained I'd never applied for this card. Let me pull up your application, she said. I heard typing. Okay. I see it was submitted online 3 weeks ago. It lists your social security number, date of birth, and current income as $45,000 per year. I'm retired. I don't make $45,000 a year. More typing. The address on file is 2847 Hampton Drive, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My blood ran cold. That was Williams and Olivia's address. Ma'am, are you still there? I need to freeze this account, immediately. And I want to report fraud. The rest of the call passed in a blur. Forms to fill out, affidavits to sign, police reports to file. The representative kept saying she was sorry, but her words felt hollow. When I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table staring at that letter. My own son had stolen my identity, not borrowed, not made a mistake, stolen. I called him. He didn't answer. I called again, and again. On the 4th try, he picked up. Mom, I'm at work. Did you open a credit card in my name? Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Williams, the bank sent me a letter. It has your address on it. Look, that must be a mistake. Don't lie to me. My voice broke. Don't you dare lie to me right now. Another long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was defensive. It was temporary, okay? We were going to pay it off before you even knew about it. You stole my identity. I borrowed your information. That's different. It's fraud, Williams. It's illegal. Oh, so now you're going to call the cops on your own son? Is that it? You've gone completely insane. I was crying now, hot, angry tears streaming down my face. You didn't just take my money this time. You took my name, my credit, my trust. We were desperate. What did you expect me to do? Get a job. Live within your means. Act like an adult. He hung up on me. I sat there in the silence of my kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. My son, my baby, the boy I'd rocked through nightmares and cheered for at every soccer game, the man who'd just committed a crime against me without a second thought. That afternoon, I drove to my bank. I froze every account, set up fraud alerts, changed all my passwords. The banker, a kind woman named Rita, didn't ask questions. She just helped me lock everything down tight. "You did the right thing," she said quietly as I was leaving. "I see this more often than you'd think. Usually it's the kids." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. That night, I slept with all the lights on, my purse and important documents locked in the fireproof safe Robert had insisted on buying years ago. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. Not of violence, but of what else he might be capable of. I woke up to 17 missed calls. My heart hammering. I scrolled through them. Margaret, my sister, 2 cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, my neighbor Dorothy, even Pastor Jim from church. What on earth? The text from Margaret was short. "Call me, now." I dialed with shaking hands. "Kayla, what is going on?" Margaret demanded before I could even say hello. "I just saw Olivia's Facebook post, and I have to say, this doesn't sound like you at all." "What post?" "You haven't seen it?" "Hold on, I'm going to read it to you." I heard her tapping her phone. "Okay, here. Some parents forget that family is supposed to come first. When money matters more than your own grandchildren going hungry, it's truly heartbreaking. I never thought I'd see the day when keeping your purse closed matters more than love. Praying for healing." My stomach dropped to the floor. "There's more," Margaret continued. "People are commenting. Lots of people. Aunt Linda said you should be ashamed. Your cousin Beth wants to know if you're having mental problems. And there are about 50 crying face emojis." I couldn't breathe. "Margaret, that's not what happened." "So tell me what did happen. Because from where I'm sitting, this looks pretty damning." I explained everything. The 15 years of bailouts, the credit card fraud, the constant manipulation. By the time I finished, I was crying so hard I could barely speak. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "Why didn't you tell me any of this before?" "I was ashamed," I whispered. "I thought it made me a bad mother." "Oh, honey. No, you're not a bad mother. Williams is a bad son." Those words, from my practical, no-nonsense sister, broke something loose in me. I sobbed into the phone, while Margaret made soothing sounds. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "Don't respond to that post. Don't engage, and definitely don't try to defend yourself. People who matter will ask you directly. The ones who believe Facebook drama without calling you first? Not worth your time." But the calls kept coming. Dorothy knocked on my door that afternoon, her face full of concern. "Kayla, dear, are you all right? I saw the most concerning post." Pastor Jim left a voicemail suggesting we talk about family reconciliation. By evening, I was exhausted from explaining myself, from defending decisions that shouldn't need defending. That's when I called Helen from the financial literacy class. "I was wondering when you'd reach out," she said. "I saw the post." "Everyone's seen the post," I said bitterly. "And everyone who knows you knows it's manipulation. Kayla, this is what abusers do. When they can't control you anymore, they try to control the narrative. He's not an abuser. He's my son. He can be both." The words hung in the air like truth often does, uncomfortable and undeniable. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling small and lost. "You protect yourself. Legally, financially, emotionally. Have you talked to a lawyer?" "About what?" "About your estate. About power of attorney. About making sure Williams can't make decisions for you if something happens." I hadn't even thought of that. But Helen was right. If Williams would steal my identity, what would he do if I got sick? If I became vulnerable? The next morning, I made an appointment with an estate lawyer, and that afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I changed the locks on my house. The locksmith was a young guy named Marcus who didn't ask questions, just efficiently replaced every lock, every deadbolt. When he handed me the new keys, I felt the weight of them in my palm. The door that had always been open to my son was now firmly closed. 4 weeks passed in relative quiet. The Facebook post eventually got buried under other people's drama. The phone calls dwindled. I started to breathe again. Then William showed up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I saw him through the window, sitting on my porch steps with his head in his hands. Every maternal instinct I had screamed at me to open the door, to bring him inside, to fix whatever was broken. Instead, I made myself coffee and waited. After 10 minutes, he knocked, soft at first, then more insistent. "Mom, I know you're in there. Please, I just need to talk to you." I opened the door but didn't unlock the screen. "What do you want, Williams?" He looked up at me, and I barely recognized him. His eyes were bloodshot. His shirt was wrinkled. He'd lost weight. "I lost my job," he said quietly. 2 weeks ago, and Olivia's pregnant again." My heart clenched. Another grandchild, another mouth to feed, another excuse to come asking for money. "Congratulations," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Mom, we have nowhere else to go. Olivia's parents won't help us anymore. The bank's foreclosing on the house. We're going to be homeless with 3 kids." Every word was designed to crack my resolve, and it was working. I could feel myself softening, feel the old Kayla rising up, ready to sacrifice everything to save her son. But then I remembered the credit card, the lies, the Facebook post, the 15 years of promises that never materialized. "Williams, I love you," I said, and my voice was soft but steady. "But if I keep saving you, you'll never save yourself." "What am I supposed to do?" His voice broke. "Just figure it out? With no help? No safety net?" "Yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's what adults do." "I can't." "You can. You've just never had to because I've always been here to catch you." He stared at me like I'd slapped him, like he was seeing me for the first time as something other than an endless well of resources. "So that's it? You're just going to let us end up on the street?" "No, Williams. You're going to figure it out. You're going to call social services. You're going to apply for assistance. You're going to get a job, any job, even if it's not the one you want. You're going to do what millions of people do every single day. You're going to survive without your mother's checkbook." "I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe it took me this long." He stood up slowly, never taking his eyes off me. For a long moment, we just looked at each other through that screen door, the barrier between who I used to be and who I was becoming. "Goodbye, Mom," he said finally, and there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Not anger, not manipulation, just sadness. He walked to his car without looking back. I closed the door and slid down against it, sitting on the floor of my entryway, crying harder than I had since Robert died. My whole body shook with the force of it. But when the tears finally stopped, something else remained. Peace. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I slept soundly. No anxiety dreams about bank statements, no nightmares about overdraft notices, just deep, restful sleep. The calls started on Monday. Unknown numbers, one after another. I let them all go to voicemail. "Mrs. Banks, this is Olivia. I'm calling from my friend's phone because apparently you're screening my calls now. I just wanted you to know that we're being evicted on Friday." "Friday? Kayla? Your grandchildren are going to be sleeping in our car? But I'm sure you're fine with that, since you're so focused on your boundaries and your retirement. I hope you sleep well at night." Delete. "Mom, it's me. Look, I know things have been tense, but we need to talk about the co-signed loans. If you don't help us catch up on payments, your credit is going to be destroyed too. Is that really what you want? Call me back." Delete. "This is ridiculous, Kayla. You're punishing your grandchildren because you're mad at us. That's cruel. That's literally cruel." Delete, delete, delete. By Wednesday, they'd escalated. A letter arrived from a law office I'd never heard of, claiming I was financially responsible for the defaulted car loan and threatening legal action if I didn't pay $8,000 immediately. I called the number on the letterhead. It rang 3 times before a tired-sounding receptionist answered. "Miller and Associates." "I received a letter about a debt collection," I explained. "But I never—" "Ma'am, are you Kayla Banks?" "Yes, but—" "Then the letter explains everything. You co-signed a loan. Your son defaulted. You're liable. We can set up a payment plan if you contact us within 7 days." My hands shook as I hung up. I called Helen. "Don't pay them anything," she said immediately. "First, check if that law firm is even legitimate. Second, if you co-signed, yes, technically you're liable, but they can't force you to pay immediately. They're using scare tactics." "What do I do?" "You call a real lawyer. Your lawyer, not theirs." I did. And my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, laughed when I read her the letter. This is barely legal. I'll send them a response that'll make them think twice about harassing you again." But Thursday brought something worse. William showed up with Olivia and a folder full of documents. I saw them coming up the walk and considered not answering, but Olivia started banging on the door, shouting, "We know you're in there." I opened the door, chain still fastened. "What do you want?" "We need you to sign these," William said, shoving papers through the gap. "What are they?" "Documents that give us power of attorney over your finances, just temporarily, until you're thinking more clearly." I almost laughed. "Almost. You want me to give you control of my money?" "You're clearly not managing it well," Olivia said. "You're making irrational decisions, cutting off your own family, refusing to help when we're in crisis. These are signs of cognitive decline, Kayla." "Cognitive decline?" I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. "We're worried about you, Mom," William said, and his voice had that soft, concerned quality again. The isolation, the paranoia, the sudden personality changes. "We think you might need help." And there it was. The final play. If they couldn't manipulate me with guilt, they'd try to declare me incompetent. "Get off my porch," I said quietly. "Mom, get off my porch or I'm calling the police." "You're going to regret this," Olivia hissed. "When you're alone in some nursing home with no one to visit you, remember that you did this." "I'd rather be alone than be used." Williams's face turned red. "You raised me to believe family helps family. You raised me to think I could count on my mother. And now you're throwing all of that away because some bored church ladies told you to grow a spine." "No, Williams. I'm finding my spine because I finally realized that what I was doing wasn't helping you. It was hurting both of us." "That's bullshit," he yelled. "This is about you being selfish. You got your whole life, you had your marriage, you had everything, and now you can't even help your son when he needs it most? What kind of mother does that? The kind who wants her son to be a man instead of a child." Olivia grabbed Williams's arm. "Come on, she's not worth it. Let her rot alone." They stormed off, and this time I didn't cry. I just closed the door, locked it, and called Patricia. "They tried to get me to sign power of attorney," I told her. "Jesus," she muttered. "Okay, here's what we're going to do." Patricia worked fast. Within a week, I had a new will that specifically excluded Williams from any executor duties. I'd named Margaret instead. I'd also added a clause that clearly stated that any challenges to the will would result in complete disinheritance. "I hate that you have to do this," Patricia said as I signed the documents. "But you're protecting yourself. That's what matters." The papers were barely filed when Williams showed up again. It was late afternoon, and I was in my garden, finally getting the tomato plants staked properly. I heard his car before I saw it, the familiar rumble of that engine he couldn't afford to maintain. He got out slowly, and I could see the anger radiating off him like heat waves. "Mom," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "We need to talk. Now." I stood up, dirt on my gloves, and faced my son. "There's nothing left to say, Williams." "Oh, I think there's plenty to say." He pulled out his phone. "I got a very interesting call today. From a lawyer. Something about changes to your will?" My stomach dropped. "How did he know about that?" "That's my business, not yours." "Like hell it is. You're cutting me out? After everything? After I'm the one who'll have to deal with selling your house and handling your affairs when you die?" "Margaret will handle my affairs." His face went through a series of emotions. Shock, hurt, and finally pure rage. "Margaret? Margaret who lives 3 states away. Margaret who barely knows anything about your life. Margaret who won't steal from me." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Williams's jaw clenched. "I never stole from you. You opened a credit card in my name, Williams. That's theft. That's fraud. That's a crime. I was trying to save my family by destroying mine." "You're not destroyed. You're fine. You have your house, your pension, your comfortable little retirement. We have nothing. We're about to be homeless, and you're worried about your precious credit score." I stepped closer to him, my hands still in those dirty garden gloves, and I felt something break open inside me. Not anger, clarity. "You know what I calculated the other night, Williams? I've given you over $60,000 in the past 15 years. $60,000. That's a year of my pension. That's vacations I didn't take. That's a new roof I postponed. That's peace of mind I sacrificed. Oh, so you kept track? You counted every dollar you gave your son? No, Williams. I didn't keep track. That's the problem. I gave and gave and gave, and I never asked for anything back. Not the money, not even gratitude. Just some sign that you were trying to do better. But you never did. Because you didn't give me a chance. I gave you 15 years of chances. We were both yelling now, and I saw Dorothy peek out from her window across the street. William stepped back, breathing hard. You're really doing this. You're really choosing money over your own son. I'm not choosing money over you. I'm choosing me. For the first time in 3 decades, I'm choosing me. What about your grandchildren? You're okay with them suffering? Your children aren't suffering because of me, Williams. They're suffering because of you. Because you won't get a job that's beneath you. Because Olivia won't cut spending. Because neither of you will take responsibility for your own lives. Go to hell, Mom. The words should have hurt. Maybe they did, somewhere deep inside. But mostly, I just felt tired. I think you should leave now, I said quietly. Oh, I'm leaving, and I'm not coming back. You want to be alone? You got it. Don't call me when you're sick. Don't call me when you need help. Don't call me when you're dying in some hospital and you realize you traded your family for your bank account. Williams, I'm done. We're done. I hope your money keeps you warm at night. He got in his car and peeled out of my driveway so fast he left tire marks on the street. I stood there in my garden, my tomato plants gently swaying in the breeze, and I waited for the grief to overwhelm me. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Lightness, like I'd been carrying a boulder and finally set it down. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a piece of paper and wrote down every dollar I'd given Williams, every amount, every date I could remember, every excuse he'd given me. When I finished, the list was 3 pages long. I tore it in half, then in half again, and again, until the pieces were too small to read. Debt forgiven, I whispered. Lesson learned. I threw the pieces away, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my back porch watching the sunset. For the first time in 15 years, I felt free. Spring came, and with it, unexpected changes. I joined the gardening club that met every Tuesday at the community center. The members were mostly women my age, widows and retirees who understood loss and rebuilding. We talked about soil pH and tomato blight, and nobody asked me for money. I started volunteering at the library's literacy program, teaching adults to read. There was something powerful about watching someone sound out their first complete sentence, their face lighting up with the realization that they'd unlocked something precious. It reminded me that growth can happen at any age, that it's never too late to learn something new. My retirement account, no longer hemorrhaging money every month, began to recover. I met with a financial advisor Helen recommended, and we mapped out a plan, not just for survival, but for living. Really living. You could retire comfortably at 67, she told me, pointing at the spreadsheet. And if you're careful, you could travel. Do the things you've been putting off. Ireland. I could finally go to Ireland. I booked the trip on a Tuesday afternoon, sitting in the coffee shop where I'd started meeting Helen for our weekly catch-ups. When I clicked, confirm purchase, my hand didn't shake. I didn't feel guilty. I felt excited. Look at you, Helen said, grinning over her cappuccino. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of me too, I admitted. And I was. For the first time in years, I was proud of myself. The summer brought Emma's birthday. My granddaughter turned 11. I sent a card with a check inside $50, the amount I'd always sent, addressed directly to her. I didn't call Williams. I didn't try to arrange a visit. I just sent the card and hoped it would reach her. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Grandma? Emma's voice was small, tentative. My eyes filled with tears. Emma, hi, sweetheart. I got your card. Dad didn't want me to call, but Mom let me use her phone when he went to work. My heart broke and healed simultaneously. I'm so glad you called. Are you mad at us? Her voice cracked. Dad says you don't want to see us anymore. I closed my eyes, choosing my words carefully. I'm not mad at you, sweetheart. Not at all. I love you very much. Things with your dad are complicated right now, but that has nothing to do with how I feel about you. He says you abandoned us. That's not true, Emma. Sometimes adults have to make hard choices to take care of themselves. That doesn't mean they stop loving people. We talked for 20 minutes. She told me about school, about her new interest in robotics, about Jake learning to ride a bike. I soaked in every word, storing them like treasures. "Can I call you again?" she asked before hanging up. "Anytime you want, sweetheart. Anytime." When the call ended, I sat with the phone in my lap, crying quiet tears that felt like release. My relationship with Williams might be broken, perhaps beyond repair. But maybe, just maybe, I could still have a relationship with my grandchildren. On different terms, healthier terms. August brought a surprise. Margaret invited me to her lake house for a week. "Just us," she said. "Sisters. No drama, no responsibilities, just relaxation." I packed my bags without hesitation. We spent those days swimming, reading on the dock, and talking about everything and nothing. On the third night, sitting by the fire pit with wine and stars overhead, Margaret said something that changed everything. "I need to tell you something," she started. "After you told me about Williams, I did some thinking about my own kids, about how I've been handling their money problems." I looked at her, surprised. "Your kids?" "Jason's been coming to me for years. Nothing as dramatic as Williams, but enough that it was adding up. After watching what you went through, I realized I was heading down the same path." "What did you do?" "I had a conversation with him. Set boundaries. Told him the free ride was over." She took a sip of wine. "He was mad at first. But you know what? 3 months later he got a better job, started actually budgeting, and last week he called to thank me." "He thanked you?" "He said he never realized how much his constant borrowing was stressing him out. Like he was always waiting for the next crisis, the next bailout. Now he's figuring things out himself, and he feels capable. His word." I stared into the fire, letting those words sink in. Maybe Williams would never get there. Maybe he'd spend the rest of his life blaming me, seeing me as the villain in his story. But maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the road, he'd figure it out too. Or maybe he wouldn't, and I was learning to be okay with that. September brought my trip to Ireland. I walked the cliffs of Moher with the wind whipping my hair, stood in ancient castles, drank Guinness in pubs where the music made my soul ache in the best way. I thought about Robert, wished he was there to see it with me, but I didn't let grief steal my joy. On my last night in Dublin, sitting in a small restaurant overlooking the River Liffey, I pulled out my phone and looked at the photos from the trip. My face in every shot looked different somehow. Younger, lighter, free. I posted one photo to Facebook, just one. Me at the cliffs of Moher, arms spread wide, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. The caption was simple: "Never too late to chase a dream." The likes and comments rolled in. Friends from church, women from the gardening club, Margaret with a string of heart emojis. And then, buried in the notifications, I saw Olivia's name. My finger hovered over it. Part of me wanted to delete it unread, but curiosity won. "Looks nice. Must be nice to have money to travel while your grandchildren are struggling." I read it twice. Waited for the guilt to crash over me. For the shame. For the voice that said, "She's right. You're selfish. You're wrong." It didn't come. Instead, I deleted the comment and blocked her account. Not with anger, just with the quiet finality of closing a door that should have been closed long ago. I typed a new post. "To anyone who needs to hear this, setting boundaries isn't selfish. Protecting your peace isn't cruel. Choosing yourself isn't abandonment. It's survival. And there's no shame in that." I hit post and turned off my phone. Let them talk. Let them judge. I was done explaining myself. When I came home from Ireland, my house felt different. Warmer somehow. More mine. I'd replaced the photos of Williams and Olivia with pictures from my trip. I'd rearranged the furniture. I'd painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow that Robert probably would have hated, but that made me smile every morning. One October afternoon, as I was planting tulip bulbs for spring, Dorothy came over with a plate of cookies. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "I believed that Facebook post. I thought you were being cruel. But I've been watching you these past months, and I've never seen you happier. and it made me realize I didn't know the whole story. I took the cookies, touched by her honesty. "Thank you for saying that. Can I ask you something?" She hesitated. "Do you regret it? Standing your ground?" I thought about it, really thought about it. The silence from Williams, the missed birthdays, the possibility that I might never have a relationship with him again. All of it weighed against the peace I'd found, the life I was building, the person I was becoming. "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. I regret waiting so long to do it." Dorothy nodded slowly. "I have a son who calls every month needing money. Has for years. Maybe it's time I had a conversation with him." "Maybe it is," I said gently. She left, and I went back to my tulips, pressing each bulb into the dark earth with care. They'd sleep through winter, these bulbs. They'd endure the cold and the darkness. And then, when the time was right, they'd push through the soil and bloom, just like me. That night, I sat down and wrote a letter I knew I'd never send, but I needed to write it anyway. "Dear Williams, I don't know if you'll ever understand why I did what I did. Maybe you'll always see me as the villain, the mother who abandoned her son when he needed her most. I can live with that. What I couldn't live with was watching you drown while I threw you lifeline after lifeline that you never learned to use. I couldn't live with sacrificing my future to enable your present. I couldn't live with teaching my grandchildren that love means letting someone drain you dry. I hope you figure it out, son. I hope you find your footing. I hope you learn that you're stronger than you think you are. But I can't be the one to teach you that lesson anymore. I tried for 15 years, and all I taught you was that Mom would always be there to catch you. I love you. I always will. But I love myself too now, and that's something I should have learned a long time ago. Mom." I folded the letter and put it in the fireproof safe, next to Robert's watch and my grandmother's jewelry. Maybe someday I'd give it to him. Maybe someday he'd be ready to read it. Maybe someday he'd understand. Or maybe not. And that was okay too. As I locked the safe, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Can I call you Sunday? I want to tell you about my robotics competition." I smiled, typing back. "I'd love that. I'll be here." And I would be. For Emma, for Jake, for myself. But not for the endless cycle of rescue and resentment. Not for the guilt and manipulation. Not for the version of me who believed that loving someone meant setting myself on fire to keep them warm. That version of me was gone. The Bank of Mom wasn't just closed, it had been demolished, and in its place, I'd built something better. A life. My life. And it was worth every difficult decision, every hard conversation, every door I'd had to close to open new ones. Winter came, and with it, the holidays. The first Christmas without Williams. Margaret invited me to her house, surrounded by her kids and grandkids, and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Gratitude. Not for the loss, but for what the loss had taught me. About strength, about boundaries, about the difference between loving someone and losing yourself in the process of trying to save them. As I watched Margaret's grandchildren tear into presents, I thought about Emma and Jake. I'd sent them gifts, bought carefully, wrapped lovingly, mailed to their house with no expectation of acknowledgement. They were from me, not from my bank account. From my heart, not from guilt. That was enough. On New Year's Eve, I stood in my backyard at midnight, listening to the distant sounds of fireworks and celebration. The year ahead stretched out before me, full of possibility and promise and peace. I raised my glass of champagne to the stars, to Robert, to the woman I used to be and the woman I'd become. "Here's to closing doors," I whispered, "and to finally walking through the ones that were meant for me." The fireworks lit up the sky, brief and brilliant and beautiful. Just like the second chance I'd given myself. Just like the life I was finally living. 2 years later, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized Williams's handwriting on the envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I should be writing this, but my therapist said I needed to try. I got a job, a real one. Steady hours, decent pay. We moved into a smaller place we can actually afford. Olivia started working too. We're making it work, barely, but we're doing it. Emma asks about you all the time. She misses you. Hell, I miss you too, even though I'm still angry. Maybe I'll always be angry. I don't know. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About the enabling. About all of it. I hated you for it. I still hate you for it sometimes. But you were right. I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if I want to. But I thought you should know that we're okay. We figured it out, like you said we would. Williams. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, not exactly happy ones either, just tears of release, of recognition, of a chapter finally closing. I wrote back, a short note, careful and measured. Williams, I'm proud of you. I always was, and I always will be. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Not as a bank, not as a safety net, just as your mom. I love you. Mom. I didn't know if he'd respond. Didn't know if we'd ever rebuild what was broken. But that was okay. I'd learned something these past years, something precious and hard-won. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can hope for reconciliation while building a life that doesn't depend on it. You can close the bank and still keep your heart open, just with better boundaries. As I sealed the envelope, I looked around my house, the house that was finally, completely mine, the life that was finally, completely mine. And I smiled. The Bank of Mom was closed. But the woman behind the counter? She was just getting started. Thank you for watching to the end. If you want more stories about courage, boundaries, and self-love, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. More powerful stories are coming your way.